Good morning. Take a comfortable seat, whatever that is for you, always sit on a chair, since you're at home or even here. And sit well, whatever that is, a nice manual inner rotation, so it rolls you to the frontmost and innermost edge of your sits bones. Join the index finger and the thumb lightly together. Turn the palms down, resting on your thighs. So the elbows are hanging right under the shoulders. And check your physical body. And the first thing to check is the alignment, the posture. So as the hips tilt forward, as you roll more to the inner edge and front edge of your sits bones, the tailbone then can engage and move down, balancing the two actions. The inner rotation happens when you roll to the frontmost and innermost edge of your sits bones, and the outer rotation counters that with the tailbone down. And as you check in with the physical body, noticing what you're feeling physically. With each inhale, elongate through the spine. Tailbone moves down, crown of the head moves up. Not by force or rigidity, but riding on little puffs of air. Bobble the head slightly to release any held tension. A lot of times when we try to sit up straight, we end up tensing the neck. It makes a sort of sense, but a no sense at the same time. And then bring your awareness to your breath, which takes you into your subtle body, the energetic body. And you may say, no energy this morning. That's your energetic body. And check in with both your energy level, your emotional, psychosocial issue level. And if words come up to describe that your feelings, that's fine. If they don't, just notice the feelings. Notice the sensations. And then notice too, if your inner judge pops out and begins to call things by descriptive names, like bad or good or anything in between. And if the judge pops out, invite the judge to just settle down with you, to practice, to find his or her own mat and practice next to you. Notice if you're feeling fidgety, the desire to move can be strong. And so sometimes settling and being still almost feels too aggressive. And just notice. Set your intention for your practice, which will follow you throughout the day. On your next inhale, draw your palms together in front of your heart center. Inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. Inhale to Om. Next exhale, release your hands, flutter your eyes open. Make some circles with the shoulders. And I like to do chicken wings, just fingertips lightly on the tops of the shoulders and draw big circles with your elbows one way and then the other. And then how big actually depends on what's going on with your shoulders. If you're hearing a lot of noise, a lot of creaking, cracking, make the circle a little bit smaller until you begin to warm up the synovial fluid. Keep reversing the direction one way for a few times and then the other way. Shoulders start to feel warm, then release. Stretch the legs out. Oh. Bend them under you. Come get your ball, either spiky ball or lacrosse ball. And again, if you don't have a ball, you can always massage the hand out. Let's start to roll out the hand, pressing the base of the thumb, then the base of the index finger, base of the third, then fourth, then fifth, and roll the outer edge of the palm across the wrist. Keep working around the circumference of the palm, then work the center of the palm, and roll from the wrist to the thumb, to the index finger, to the middle finger, rolling back, scribble around a bit, and pause. Notice the difference between the two hands. Just hold them a few inches apart. And move to the second side. Press first, press hard at the base of the thumb, at the base of the index finger. It makes the knuckle pop out each time you move to that hand. And work to the outer edge of the palm, to the wrist, back to the mound of the thumb, and roll the whole circumference of the hand. Press through the center of the palm, then rinse from wrist to thumb, wrist to tip of the index finger, and so on through each finger, and scribble. And release. Come to hands and knees. Pad your knees as you wish. Good morning, Allison. Spread the fingers of the hands that they should be nice and warm, and connect with the base of the index finger, base of your thumb, and begin to round and arch your back. Make it as big or as small as you wish. Enjoying this, maybe the first biggest movement you've done this morning, unless you've been up for hours and plowed the North 40. Let's explore all the places that are a little tight this morning. And then do this little mini sun salutation. So I'm having an OCD moment. My mat is 1/2 inch out of square, driving me nuts. Okay. As you exhale, tuck your toes, shift back into a crouch pose, and unfold into dog. Inhale to plank, soften between the shoulder blades, and lower the knees. You make it one easy movement. The exhale is when you contract and move back. The inhale is plank and down. Continue following the arc of the breath and noticing what's going on as you, with your foundation and the hands. Are you rocking to the outside heel of the hand? I sure am. So recommit, connect to the base of your index finger, base of your thumb, press the finger pads under the fingernails down, even as you're moving around and around. Just this warms you up quite a bit. The next time you come to table, pause there, widen the knees, toes together, stack your hands on top of each other and rest in a child's pose. Forehead on your hands so that your neck is not hanging lower than your spine. Inhale, come up. Come back into table, place the hands, walk the knees back behind the hips, tuck your toes, and lift into downward facing dog. Walk out your dog, pedaling the feet. And pause a minute, bend your knees, hug your heels energetically towards each other. That means they're still tucked in behind your ankles. You should not be able to see your heels, but they're in alignment. The knees are lined up with the ankles, bending the knees a lot. Then you can push through the sits bones, moving back, widening the pelvic floor, lengthen the tailbone down and then slightly up to the xiphoid process. On your next exhale, as you walk your hands back towards your feet, the sits bones move back and up. Oh, and come into forward bend. Inhale halfway up. Soften the knees, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones. On your next inhale, hinge from the hips and rise up. Ooh. Work the feet. First pressing. Press the base of each toe, just as we did across the hand, the base of each finger. And start to work into the soft part of the arch. You guys know the drill. Work it. Particularly pressing each little point, and you'll find all kinds of lovely little points along the foot. And begin to rinse from heel to toe. And scribble, going back to some of the spots that were particularly tender and working there. Release. Stand a moment. I love this comparison. One leg feels awake, energized all the way up into the hip and maybe slightly up towards T12, the 12th thoracic vertebrae. Oh, and switch to the other side. Pressing the base of each toe and working the bubbling spring right at the top of the soft part of the arch. Ooh, push the inner arch and I feel the little tingle in the elbow. It's an energy train that's working up the back of the body, the back fascial chain. And then rinse. And scribble. And release. Set your ball free, throw it to the dog, and stand at the top of your mat, please. Lift all 10 toes, feet parallel. So the tendency when we lift the toes, and just notice, I think we all do this, at least I've observed many people do it. We lift the toes and we overlift the big toes and tend to roll more energy out and weight out to the outer edge of the foot. So super press, super ground the ball of the foot nearest the big toe ball. Keep that, inner arch lifts, inner heel presses down so much that you feel it start to move up through the inner legs. The knees, muscles around the knees are starting to engage more. Keeping that, do not lose that connection to the earth and the inner edge of the feet. Fan from the inner heel to the ball of the foot nearest the baby toe. Keeping the baby toe, it may still be on the floor, but you're trying everything you can to lift it. Then pull the baby toe back towards the outer heel as the outer arch lifts and the outer heel tucks down. The knees stay soft. It's very difficult to do that. Well, you can do it when the knees are locked, but it's easier if they're soft. Keeping all of that, Cinderella's and Fella, hug the heels towards each other energetically. What that will do is a little bit of outer rotation so that the knees start to come over the ankles. Keeping that, then inner rotate the thighs and the tailbone lengthens down. As the tailbone lengthens down, the toes can slide along the floor without losing that engagement. And then xiphoid to tailbone. So I started calling it the xiphoid zip. So xiphoid to tailbone, moving kind of diagonally up, down and up at the same time. And also as though you're trying to pull a tight pair of zip jeans and a tight jacket that you're zipping up as well. So you're pulling into the midline. Keeping all of that, then lift the heart. Keep the tailbone moving down and a tiny bit forward. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bend the elbows and lift the upper back. So you're arcing from the upper back, not collapsing the hips forward. Inner thighs are resisting back and curl back. Oh, morning back bend. Inhale, come up. Interlace the hands. Shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones. And as you press down and rise up through the legs, bow forward. Oh. Next, inhale, come halfway up, soften the knees. Hug the heels again, inner thighs move back, tailbone lengthens up to xiphoid, xiphoid, and on your inhale, rise up. Notice which finger is on top, which thumb is on top. Release, and recross the second favorite way with the other thumb on top. Again, steady in the legs, tailbone down, arc back first, and then lead with the heart, not with the chin, with the heart, and come forward again on this side. And notice the grip of the hands will not only feel wrong, sometimes it's even hard to hold them. We get so used to being in a certain pattern. Inhale halfway up, soften the knees. Take a breath. Next, inhale all the way up. Release the hands and shake them off. Nice. All right, let's rock it. Have your blocks near you, please. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, prepare, step your right leg back, straight leg lunge. Blocks at either side as you wish. Bending, straighten, straighten, bend. Or light on the fingertips wherever you are. Stretching the hamstring lightly, no heavy holes here, just enough to keep moving. The next time you're in lunge, pause, plant your hands, step back, plank pose. Soften between the shoulder blades. And again, the legs are doing the same thing they were doing when you're standing. You're spreading the toes, pressing through the four corners of the feet. Hug the heels towards each other without bringing them towards each other. Knees, shins energetically press forward as the inner thighs move back, tailbone lengthens. And breathe, soften between the shoulder blades. And lower down, knees, chest, and chin, all the way to the floor. Come up into Sphinx posture. First, belly back bend. Spread the fingers of the hands. Press the hands into the earth just like you were doing dog. Connect with the base of the index finger, base of the thumb particularly. Hug the thumbs towards each other as you're pulling the baby fingers away. Hug the inner elbows towards each other as the forearms pull back and curl up. Exhale, release. Plant your hands either side of your chest. Shrug the shoulders, tuck your toes. Next, exhale, lift into downward facing dog. Next, inhale, Step your right foot forward, straight leg lunge. Fingertips on the block or lightly on the floor. And begin to straighten, bend, bend, straighten. Oh. And explore what surprises are in store for you there. With the breath, exhale when you bend the back knee, straighten the front leg. And inhale when you come forward back into lunge. Back and forth. And the next time you come into lunge, don't hurry it. Step back into plank pose. Hover. So again, the legs are strong. The hands are connected to the earth, base of the index finger, base of the thumb. Soften between your shoulder blades. And lower down all the way to the floor. Interlace the hands behind the back. And notice, is it your habitual side, or in my case, I tend to always overlap the right thumb over the left. That's fine, just notice it. Stretch the legs long behind you. Click all 10 toenails on the floor, including the baby toenail. And then even against that, hug the heels towards each other without pulling the baby toenail up off the floor. Lengthen your tailbone and pull it up slightly to the xiphoid. Xiphoid pulls down, zips towards the tailbone, and lift the upper chest. Legs are grounded. They get light, but ground them as though someone were sitting on them. And lift. And exhale a little, you lower a tiny bit. Inhale, lengthen. Release, make a pillow with your hands, either on your forehead or turn your head one side and windshield wiper your legs. You repeat this, but with the hand clasp reversed. The second favorite way. Strengthen through the legs. Click all 10 toenails down baby toe side, particularly, and against that, hug the heels towards each other. Inner thighs lift as the tailbone lengthens long. As you lift up, pull the xiphoid back towards the tailbone, and inhale, lift, and exhale, a tiny lowering. Inhale, lift, stretch all the way through the baby toe side of the foot. Breathe. One more. Inhale, lift up, and release. Plant your hands, tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Holy gamoly. Join dog as a resting pose here. Next, inhale, step your left foot forward between your hands. Turn around. Spin the back foot down. Left elbow to the left thigh. Right hand to the right hip. Stack your shoulders. So the tendency here, because we're not wanting to fall over, is to tilt forward. That causes the bum to go back. The idea is if you steady the legs, pull them to the midline as the inner thighs move back, tailbone down, then the legs are strong. You can take the weight off the elbow. It's just there for looks. In fact, practice lifting the elbow up without moving your torso. Hand on the hip. Top arm comes forward, pull it in. Half beach babe, pull the armpit back. Stretch the elbow towards the direction your front foot is pointing. Now take the weight back off of this hand and come into full beach babe, elbows forward, both elbows stretching towards the feet. So Dan, pull your elbows towards me, hug them in. Now stretch them up. Now try to stretch them that way. Yeah, do you feel that differently? As opposed to wide. And release. Spin back into downward facing dog. And step the right foot forward, straight like lunge. Spin the back foot down. The right elbow on the right thigh, left hand on the hip. Stack shoulders on top of each other. So steady the legs. That means you're pressing through the four corners of the feet. Hug the feet towards each other. Inner thighs move back. Tailbone lengthens. Pull the side ribs back. It's another way of saying draw the xiphoid. Zip it. Zip it up, zip it down, zip it in. Take the weight off the right elbow. So your legs are holding you, not your elbow to your thigh. Top arm comes into beach babe, half beach babe. Pull the elbow, so you suck the armpit back. Elbow comes so you can see it out of, when you're, see it from the peripheral vision. Now stretch as you push your head into your hand. Stretch the elbow towards the direction your front foot is facing, short edge of the mat. Then come into full beach babe pose. Pull in, hug in tight with the arms, both hands behind the head, and the elbows stretch towards the short edge of the mat. Woo. Next, inhale, release. Spin down, downward facing dog. Oh. Enjoy your dog. Walk your hands back to your feet. Forward bend at the back of your mat. Hands to your hips, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, strengthening from the core of the pelvis down through the legs. Inhale, hinge from the hips and rise up. Nice. Take, have your blocks near you. Take a wide stance facing me, Dan. Feet parallel. And in fact, the feet are slightly turned in. Now lift all 10 toes and connect with the four corners of the feet. Here it will be naturally easier to connect to the inner edge of the feet because we tend to roll in here. Keep that, that's great, but lift your inner arch. Don't collapse the inner arch, and that helps. The more you pull the toes up, the more the inner arch will lift. Keep that and fan from the inner heel to the ball of the foot nearest the baby toe, outer edge. Your outer arch connects and the outer heel tacks down. Nice. Keeping all of that, press the shins forward, micro bend the knees, inner thighs move back, hug the heels towards each other as you send the inner thighs back. Come to somewhere on the blocks of the floor where the shoulders are soft, shoulder blades hug on your back. And then keeping all of that, extend the toes long on the floor, press down as the sits bones lift towards the sky. The hands come down blocks. This is stage one, where you're up on the blocks, the back is long. It's better to be here than to be all rounded up and over. Keep the back long, roughly parallel with the floor. If you are able to bend farther, the spine stays long, 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 long. And at the very last minute, it might slightly round, but the desire, the energy is in keeping the spine long. Inhale, come halfway up if you're not already there. You may have to wiggle your feet in. With the right hand, take hold of the outside of the left leg, somewhere along the outside. It may be closer to the ankle, maybe closer to the hip. The left fingertips then walk straight out in front of you. The tendency here as we start to twist is the right hip will collapse. So your inner right thigh, the leg you're turning away from, pull it back a lot. You'll get a beautiful stretch along the right side. Then as you
bend your left elbow up towards the ceiling, pull the torso underneath, keeping the opposite side from collapsing. Deep, wide-legged twist. Inhale, back to center. Whew. All right, we've been here a while. Let's keep going to the last side. The left hand then holds somewhere on the outside of the right leg. The right fingertips perch up, bend the right elbow, and lift it as though you're trying to pull it behind your head. Again, now the left side will be the one that wants to collapse. So you're pulling the inner left thigh back to the left, and the inner left belly is moving towards the left as you begin to spin and open under your arm. Saying good morning to if your deodorant is working pose. Oh, inhale back to center. Heel toe the feet towards each other. We'll come under the hips, soften the knees. We've been down there a long time, so take it easy coming up. Come up halfway, shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, and on your next inhale, use the legs to hinge from the hips and roll the shoulders. All right, standing postures. One more standing posture. Take a wide stance. Oh no. Turn your left toes towards the short edge of the mat. Have a block near you. Start with the block on the inside. The back foot is roughly parallel to the short edge of the mat. I even turn it in slightly, lifting my heel out. Helps me keep the back thigh, the back leg inner rotated more. Then you want to counter that. So if you go too far to the inner rotation, you've gone too far. Your knees start to knock together. So as the inner thighs move in, particularly in the back leg, then work the outer edge of the foot. So you're not rolling to the inner edge to counter it with a little bit of counter outer rotation. Hands on the hips as you press the hips away, lengthen the spine. This may be where you stop. You can do this up against a wall. You can have a chair in front of you, or you can bring the fingertips to the block. If the top shoulder starts to roll forward, then you've lost the loving feeling. So Dan, come up a bit. Come, there you go. Now, the legs are strong, so the upper body has a sense of lightness, of airiness. If the legs stop doing their job, the upper body then just naturally clenches in. So to keep the breath flowing, we've got to relax the upper body enough that it can open. The ribs then are spinning up towards the ceiling, and the low belly is moving, spinning back to the floor. Push away from the hand, the left hand, whether it's on the floor or the block, and breathe. On your next inhale, turn to face your foot, step your back foot up slightly and turn it way in, walking Egyptian, almost in line with the front foot. The block then comes about hip distance away from the front foot. Square your hips to the short edge of the mat. So as the left foot is forward, the left thumb digs into the left hip crease, and the left hand pulls the left hip back and down, the straight leg, straighten the front leg. Be light on the fingertips, whatever you're doing. If you're putting a lot of weight on the hand, the legs can take a break. So you come light on the fingertips, stand on your hand, really light, like no weight on the hands. And your back heel is down. You step the back foot up enough that your back heel can be all the way on the floor. Step your back foot forward, please, without falling. All right, so one thing Dan's doing is he's walking the tightrope. So his feet are almost directly behind each other, and that makes balance really tricky. So you still step your feet roughly hip width apart. Yeah, now stretch. This may be where you stop, or you may also be able to spin the ribs towards the front leg, towards the left. Pull the outer left hip back. You'll notice that as you start to spin, the left bum wants to slide forward, moving it back. On your inhale, come forward, and come out. Shake off. Revolve triangle. That deserves a sip of water. So if your hand is hurting on that one, Dan, it means you've put too much weight on the hand. There's so little weight on this hand. It's more about balance than holding anything up. First, take a wide stance, as wide as possible. The blocks on the inside about near the heel, between the heel and the knee. The back toes, either the baby toe side is parallel with the short edge of the mat, or you slightly turn the toes in a little bit more. Then hug the legs together, scissor them in, hands on the hips, and stretch out away from your hips. You're tilting over. The tendency is to lock the front knee. Still push, particularly for the Allisons in the world, press the front shin forward and move over. Again, you can be up against a wall. The hand can be on a block, a chair. Countertop works really well. This gives you a nice stretch. Yeah, Dan, so snuggle yourself a little closer to the wall. Step your front foot a little closer to the wall and the back foot back. There you go. Now, without bending the front knee, stretch for the wall. Yeah, you feel it? Stretch for the wall. Keeping the top shoulder, your left shoulder back, so that if the left shoulder comes forward, you've lost the point there as well. It's more about elegance and alignment than how deep you go. And for those of you who want to go a little farther, you just keep moving, but do it incrementally. Straighten the front leg down. There you go. Now, not with the head. So take the, this is starting to come forward. Yeah, there you go. That's why I was saying if you went a little closer to the wall, it would be more accessible to you. Straighten the front leg. It hurts, right? And then breathe. Now for revolve triangle, step your back foot up, but the back foot leg is still, you're not on a tightrope. You're not behind each other. It makes balance hard. So step it over a bit. Give yourself a break. Then the block goes right in front of the back foot, sort of, and that means the block and the front foot are about hip width apart. The right hand pulls the outer right hip crease back. You'll notice that will cause you to pull. You want to step your right foot forward, Dan. There you go. And I would do it, Dan. Yeah, do it facing this way so you're on the mat. There you go. As you pull the outer right hip crease back and down, you'll notice that the tendency is to pull off the inner edge of the front foot. So recommit to pressing the ball of the foot nearest the big toe and the inner heel down as you pull the outer right hip crease back. Stretch the spine long. This may be exactly where you need to stay for quite a while, and sometimes even still. Notice how much weight is on your left hand. Take the weight off and begin to spin the ribs, maybe. Otherwise, stay just in the beginning form of the pose. Wherever you can breathe and keep the integrity of the pose. If you start collapsing in places, you've lost that love and feeling, so you come back. That song has been an earworm. I'm trying to remember, I have to look up what year it was, but it's the Righteous Brothers, wasn't it? It's probably a different group that originally put it out. And release. Oh, step back, downward facing dog. And lower down to your knees. And come to sit. Sit up on a bit of a blanket. Bend the feet underneath you towards the right. The feet can touch or it can be farther away. It depends how far apart the knees are, really depends on you. So play with, that's your volume control. You'll
be spending most of your weight on the left bum. The right bum will come up on this one. I'm gonna turn a bit to the side so you can see. So the left bum gets high. You may want blocks or a blanket behind you. And as you exhale, twist, and I recommend use the hands, lift your bum up so you can roll more towards the outer racing stripe of the bottom leg, the left leg. And then keep walking around and maybe come to your forearms. Here's where your blocks can be helpful. Don't get them too high, they will flop over. And then walk the top knee, that will be, if you're sitting on your left bum, your top knee is your right one. Keep walking the right knee behind you as though you're trying to meet the sole of your right foot with your left elbow. This big sort of psoas stretch here. So Dan, keep walking around behind you. So you want to walk towards the wall to the degree you can. So it's not so much out. Yeah, you just keep walking away from the bent knee, moving back around, big stretch. Relax the jaw, relax the hands, soften between your shoulder blades. Press the inner top knee, the inner right knee into the earth as you pull the ribs away from the hip. Oh, the side's so tight. So notice which side is the most resistant. Inhale, come back to center. Now flip the legs the other way. So now your left leg is on top. Pick up your bum and roll to the outer edge of the bottom leg, the right leg. And then begin to walk the hands around to the back. Keep lifting your bum as you need to. The top leg, your left leg in this case, the hip comes all the way off the floor. You're not trying to keep it down. It's, in fact, you're bringing it forward to where it's stacked. And then walk around towards the back. Press the inner front knee down. The more you move this knee back, the bigger the stretch you'll get across the top of the thigh. But I would move it back once you've twisted, then start to work it back. Now here I think I have a tie in terms of which side is tightest. What about you, Dan? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. He's not talking to me. Okay, get around so I don't turn away. All right. It's just they're tight in different places. Rotating the rib cage down towards the floor and back towards your right, away from your knees, the direction your knees are pointing on. Breathe, soften the hands, soften the face, soften between the shoulder blades. Big stretch. And release, slowly come back to center. Roll to your back. And we'll do a supported bridge. You're liking that, huh Dan?
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good one. It gets the psoas. It gets all of these outer hip flexors and the quadratus lumborum, which is a deep muscle near the side back that for me gets quite tight. Okay. For a supported bridge, knees bent, feet on the floor, do robot arms, press into your elbows and snuggle your shoulder blades underneath you. Then lift, and the block can be the lowest, or you can go one stage up.
How do you know if you go one stage up? Well, if you collapse the chest, then you've done it. You need to come down a notch. So reset again. The feet, the legs don't have to work so hard here in supported bridge because you can't fall out of alignment too much in the lower body. But the upper body, you can still collapse. So as you press into your elbows, lift your shoulder blades a little bit off the floor and snuggle them together. Tack the top, try to get the top of your shoulders on the floor. Then press the center back of the head into the earth as the chin is gently, it's as though there's a little string connected to the chin to the sternum. And as you lift the chin slightly, the sternum moves towards the chin. Big upper back opener, chest opener. The arms can stay in robot arms, or you can pull them underneath you and hold on to the block. Or maybe if your arms are long enough, they can touch and interlace. Otherwise, they roll underneath you. Lift the chest, open the chest. You can do other variations here or just stay quiet. The other variations, as long as the chest does not collapse. If you feel the heart dropping at all, then you've lost that love and feeling. Keep the love and feeling by lifting the heart, and then the knees come right over the hips. Now the core has got to engage. Zip the xiphoid, pull the belly button back and in, even as the low back is lifting away from the floor. So you can come into fallen over chair, or as long as the upper back does not collapse, the legs can lengthen. So what happens when people's hamstrings are tight, they compensate by dropping the heart. So snuggle your shoulder blades underneath you more, lift your chest, lift your chin, and stretch the legs if you're doing this version. If not, just stay happy where you are. And if the legs are up, bend them back into fallen over chair. And with the core engaged, lower one foot and then the other. Lowering both at the same time puts a bit of a strain on the low back. For suspension bridge, I suggest if your block was a little bit higher, bring it down to its lowest level and then stretch from here. The legs are still strong. Inner edges of the legs are working down towards the floor. So if you turn out here, I feel it in my low back when the legs roll out. So keep them straight up. And the chest still lift. You're doing your best to move the chest away from the hips. The sternum is moving towards your head, side of your mat, as the tailbone's lengthening down towards your heels. Another nice, sort of a passive, not so passive, but a less active psoas stretch. And then bend one knee and then the other. Place feet on the floor, lift the hips. So a nice little therapeutic psoas stretch. To walk the feet almost mat width apart and do a pretty strong pigeon toe turn in. So the knees just naturally knock together. If you're having to work to get the knees together, maybe your feet are too wide or maybe they're not wide enough. So play that and turn the pigeon toe in a lot. That gives you a big inner rotation. And the back waist is still off the floor. The shoulder blades are on the back.
and soften. Just think the psoas is the muscle that attaches right about T12. So T12 is right about at the bottom of the back ribs. So think about the sort of lower middle of your back, not quite to the waist, just about 4 fingers above the waist. And you're lifting there and inner rotating all the way up to T12. And the side ribs slide down towards the floor without collapsing the low back. But that's about T12 is where the psoas is attached. And then it's this big sort of pear-shaped, starts to be pear-shaped, then gets thin again, that runs down through all the complicated stuff in your belly, around the pelvis, and it attaches to the top of the inner thigh bone. And it's the biggest muscle that connects the upper body with the lower body. When we sit a lot, it stays contracted a lot, and it can be the source of a lot of low back ache and discomfort. And then come into, you can either stay here or come into your regular Shavasana. Support yourself as you need. Blankets or blocks under your knees. Let the bones sink into the sand like you're on this one of these great beaches and you're just sinking into the sand as all the skin, muscle, tissue soften.
Begin to deepen your breath, bringing gentle movement to your fingers and your toes, your hands and your feet, stretching in any way that feels delicious, taking your time. And gradually drawing your knees in and rolling over to your side. Rest there for a few moments. And then push yourself up to a seated position and sit well. I'll go over the cooling breath because apparently we're in for it for a few days here, week or two or 5, I don't know. And the cooling breath, if you can make a little straw with your tongue, something natural you can do or you can't. If you can't, and I can't, I'm pushing the tongue forward as though and moving the lips as though you're putting a straw in your lips. And as you inhale, pull the air in through the straw, either the curled tongue or an imaginary straw. And you'll notice that the air is cool. Let the air settle. Cold air settles. So you just let the cold air settle through the body. And when you're ready, exhale slowly through the nose, all the heat, all the tiredness. Again, when you're ready, sip in. Close the lips softly. Let the cool air settle through the body. And exhale slowly, as slowly as you can, extending the exhale to about the same length as the inhale at least, if not longer. And again, sip in. Hold the cool air, let it settle. Continue this for a few rounds at your own pace. Easily, no efforting, no attempt to hold hard. So as you hold the cool air in, as you hold the inhale, you're holding just long enough to be comfortable, exhaling before you're uncomfortable. This not only works for temperature heat, but it can work for that emotional heat. So if you're getting a little frustrated, like I was getting frustrated with traffic yesterday. It's like, what happened? It was so beautiful during the spring, having no traffic. Not good for the economy, but still really nice. And now it seems to be back full force, intense. So use this breath whenever you need to cool down physically, on the physical body or the subtle body. And the next time you exhale, don't rush, take your time. Come back to normal breath. Draw your palms together in front of your heart center. We honor ourselves and all people, the light that shines throughout the world. Namaste. Thank you, guys.